Alright, what's up guys, it's KOSDFF here, and today you're gonna hear about the first time I got my ass just totally handed to me. Now this isn't the first time I got my ass beat, no, and I'm not talking about sports. I've actually been jumped a few times in Sydney by like an opposing Korean gang, and got the absolute tar kicked out of me. Those don't really count because I was completely outnumbered, and it pretty much just instantly fell to the floor and just took the beating. Basically, those weren't fair fights, but today you're gonna hear about a fair fight that was very one-sided. It is a dark and shameful period of my history, but there is a little bit of backstory to this fight, and this fight just wasn't just a normal fight that just happened. This was a planned fight. There was like 40 kids there. Yeah, it was one of those moments where everyone had met on the weekend, all in this like secluded spot in some back road right near the high school to have a like mini fight club. Originally, this was supposed to be a huge like fight between our two groups, but really ended up as a whole bunch of individual fights, and then the guy that was wanting to fight me finally showed up at the very end and then proceeded really to kick my ass. Now before you're thinking this guy just tore me a new one, he did. Now he beat me in the fight, but he was a little guy, he was a little bit smaller than me, he had weak ass arms. Although he hit me with quite a few punches and a few combinations really, because this kid was a little boxer, he didn't really leave a bruise on me. I didn't really get fucked up. You know, I went to school like the next day. I think it was the day after next, because this happened on a Saturday. But I didn't have any black eye, surprisingly, from the barrage of hits I took to the face. He just wasn't hitting me very hard. He wasn't a really mean-spirited kid. Now these are a bunch of suburbs kids, by the way. We're already back in America. We've left Australia. We're in some little tiny town near Charlotte, North Carolina. Now there was a pretty violent element to this school, and there was a lot of gangs in our school. That was just because in Mecklenburg County, those school systems have a choice program where you get to choose where you want your kid to go to school, and then they'll bus you no matter where you live, which is an absolutely terrible system, but I guess that's your tax dollars at work. Can't discriminate against someone based on where they live, so they'll bus your kid anywhere in the whole county so you can go to school. And Mecklenburg County is a freaking massive school system. I think it's the largest school system on the East Coast. I could be wrong. It's where all the original busing cases actually came from, so that's why it's a hot topic issue there. Anyway, these kids were not them. They were all from the lake. They were all preppy white rich kids that lived in my neighborhood and even nicer neighborhoods that were like further up closer to the lake. But this was a crowd of about 25 people on their side, and we had about 8 on our side. But the story doesn't start there. The story actually starts in school, like I believe on a Friday. Basically I'd come out of lunch after, basically I wasn't even coming out of my lunch. I had skipped my class to go have lunch with my girlfriend's little sister because she was new to the school, didn't have a whole lot of friends, and she was the type that would go eat lunch in the bathroom, so I would often skip my Latin class because who gives a fuck about Latin, and go have lunch with her just so that she had somebody to sit with. So me and her are coming out of like the cafeteria because we gotta go to our 6th period or 5th period class, and I noticed like this huge group of sophomores or 10th graders kind of circling around and pushing my friend Joe around. Now I say my friend, at the time he wasn't really my friend. He was someone that I was really good friends with like in 10th grade, but in 11th grade I guess I had kind of grown apart from him. We didn't really talk anymore. So they were all pushing him around in this circle, and the reason why was because apparently this kid Joe had sold weed to, or this kid had sold weed to Joe. It was one of the two, I forget which one. There was some kind of discrepancy there, and they had basically all kind of ganged up on little old Joe, and this guy's a little dude, a little Irish looking guy. He literally looks like a little leprechaun, at least that's how I remember him. Curly headed, really nice dude, just not a mean bone in his body, not a violent bone in his body. The guy was always smiling no matter what. But anyways, they're pushing this dude around, and for some reason that just like made me see red. I got pissed as fuck seeing that happen. So I, of course, jumped right into the middle of the circle, pushed Joe out of it, and proceeded to talk shit and taunt every single person in that little circle. Now, of course, they're little 10th grade pussies, and I'm like a junior at this point, and I have quite a temper, so when I'm pissed off, I can make quite the racket, and they all pretty much back down, like, instantly. Oh, you're a fucking junior, we don't want to fuck with you, and I'm like, so is Joe, and like, what the fuck you, there's like 9 of you on one, just like totally taunting the hell out of all of them, saying, if you're gonna fight someone, fight me, and I was one of those kids where I just really liked fighting, but I was never like mean enough to just go beat up someone, so I was always the white knight that would come protect my friends all the time. It was really just because I was a scrappy kid and kind of an asshole. But they all backed down, but really the only other thing I can remember is that I spit on one of these kids, and he went to spit back on me, and it actually went right over me and landed on Lauren. I felt really terrible for her, and everyone was like, oh, because it landed on her. But by the time I had noticed that that had happened and turned around, he had scurried off and left, and all of his little Rat Pack crew had all like just gone away. They were all shook as shit. They saw white. They didn't expect me to do that, I don't think. Because I went and pushed like every single one of them, or like poked him in the chest and like totally taunted the fuck out of him. There was like no way you were a man and back down from that fight. But they were all little pussies anyways. But that was really the end of it. I went on to class, you know, after class I went over to my friend Marcus's house. But that's when I got a call from my sister, who was playing with some kids on our street, that a whole bunch of cars had come down my street and that they were looking for me. This also made me see red to the point of just no explanation. I was so fucking pissed that these little shits went to my house and actually talked to my sister. If you really think about about that and you think about the situation, it even boils my blood now thinking about it, that these kids had the audacity to come to my home. So of course me, Marcus, and the 3 other guys we were hanging out with that house piled into a car and went looking for him. So we went straight to my neighborhood, straight to my street. I talked to my sister and she told me what kind of cars they were in and who it was, because we all vaguely knew each other because we were all from this neighborhood, but it was actually quite large and it was like 3 exits on the highways worth of neighborhoods, but we all kind of heard of each other. And I found out it was led by this kid named Chain, whose little brother was the lead antagonist in that whole thing with Joe earlier that day in the lunchroom. Now I kinda know Chain. His name's actually Chain, but don't let the name throw you. He's just a little shit. The only thing I really remember about him is that he had really long hair like a girl and that he was a really talented artist. I actually knew him in middle school before I went to Australia. We had a couple classes together and he would draw all day and his drawings were actually like legit fucking awesome. They looked like comic books. But all in all, he's actually a pretty good kid. I talk shit about him just to add flavor to the story, but nah, he was a good dude. But we eventually found them at the pool. It was him in his car, and I think my old friend Matthew in his white car. I don't really remember. Matthew being another person that I was friends with before I went to Australia that I really had not become friends with because we moved back into the same house in the same neighborhood. But of course I, made different friends. It had been 4 or 5 years since I'd seen any of these kids, and we were literally 12 the last time I'd seen them. But all in all, I knew they were all bitches. So of course, me being me, as soon as the car stopped, I jumped out of that and just start running at these fools, going to challenge all of them, just like I'd done to his little brother and his punk friends earlier that day. And of course, they all bitched out again. I even had to kick Matthew's car to try and get him to get out of the car because they were all just sitting around listening to me and Chain argue. And there was no ground being made here. I was really just screaming. I was so livid that he had come and talked to my sister, and he was just pissed because apparently I had intimidated his little brother. Both worthy causes of anger. But of course, there was a playground nearby, and one of the parents had overheard the argument and said they were calling the cops. So we all scurried. We did manage to see which car Chain got into and proceeded to follow him, but after like a half an hour of driving around, we finally gave up. Yeah, we followed this kid. They didn't speed away. It wasn't like a high-speed chase. They drove the speed limit and they just never stopped, and we eventually gave up. But again, I thought that was the end of it and actually went to go hang out with my friend Chris, which was my girlfriend at the time's mother's boyfriend's son, if you guys can follow that. And went to go hang out with him and party. We had kind of a small get-together at his house and we pretty much partied the whole night. But around 10 o'clock in the morning, I got a call from my friend Marcus, who had spent the whole night texting hate messages and fight messages back and forth between his old friend Logan, and they had arranged this massive like gang fight between their group and our group. Now later they told me they were arranging kind of a one-on-one fight between me and Chain, but of course they got to hollering and talking a whole bunch of shit to each other and decided they wanted to have a huge group-on-group fight, which I wasn't really down for. I just wanted to beat Chain's ass. I don't really care about getting into some huge like patriot fucking war battle. But of course I was really surprised to hear that not only was I getting into a fight later that day, but I was getting into a huge gang fight and then I had to be there in like a half an hour. So of course I got my car, drove over to Marcus's, and we all rallied up and went to go meet them on this back street that was behind the high school. Soon as we pull up, we see they have like 30 dudes and we're fucked. But like most other situations where I'm uncomfortable in, or I'm just frightened, or any kind of like fight or flight situation, it just boils my blood and I actually just get really pissed. So of course, yet another time that I jumped out of the car and went against this massive group of people and just went up and screamed at a whole bunch of dudes. Was just talking a whole bunch of shit about how this is supposed to be a one-on-one fight and they're all a bunch of pussies. As soon as I got like 4 or 5 sentences of talking shit out, I realized Chain wasn't even there. And I was like, where in the fuck is your boy? And they're all like, oh, he had something to do. He had soccer practice. He had boxing training or whatever the fuck he had to do. He wasn't there. But of course, Marcus and this Logan guy are all hooting and hollering about how they're gonna have this big group fight. But it really just ended up in a whole bunch of 1v1 fights. And Marcus's older brother ended up beating the shit out of one dude from their side. This huge dude named Javon, I really forget his actual name, but a huge big black dude, like football player kind of guy, because these were kind of like the jockey dudes, beat the shit out of this guy named Charles that was on our side. It wasn't Javon, it was Javaris. Javaris, that's what it was. He beat the shit out of Charles. Poor Charles got knocked the fuck out into a ditch. And right about when that fight ended and everyone was kind of palling up and talking about how, the fights were pretty good, because these aren't really mean kids. They're all actually kind of friendly. And it was like we were having our own little private fight club. That's when Chain showed up. And thank the fuck Christ, because it was about time, because I wasn't about to challenge any of these other assholes. For me to actually fight someone, I've got to be pretty mad at you. I've got to be like sufficiently angry to want to hurt, which is a rare feeling for me for the most part. Like I said, I'm not an asshole. I do like to fight, but it takes me a while to get there. But he showed up. Sure enough, I saw fucking red. Now everyone kind of circled around. This was the big fight. This was the main event. And this little fucker that couldn't have weighed more than 110 pounds just boxed the ever-loving shit out of me. I'm talking left hooks, right hooks, uppercuts, jabs. My fucking right arm got stuck in my sweater, so I'm trying to throw punches like a wounded chicken, a little fucking fucked up duck. just flapping wings, and I'm just taking fucking hits. I eventually get like completely crossed and actually get down on the ground. He gets on behind me, tries to choke me, which everyone tells him not to do, so he just starts punching me in the back of the head. And I'm just sitting there trying to get my fucking arm out of my sweater, still pulling the duck moves, and then everyone kind of breaks us up so I could get my sweater off. So I take off my sweater, we square up to go for round 2, and I'm fucking ready to go. And that's when he hits me with the, why the fuck are you doing this, man? Let's stop, let's stop. Why are we fucking doing this? Because he could tell I was fucking livid. I was about to explode on this dude. I was about to be that dude that you never expect to go buck and go crazy, but you can see it in his eyes. He's about to explode. But he eventually said, you know, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this, man? Because right before the fight, I looked over his little brother and said, hey, man, you fucked up. You know, you fucked up. You're the one who fucking caused the situation. And he was like, why the fuck are you protecting Joe? Why the fuck you like Joe? Apparently, he ripped off my little brother. He's talking all this shit about, like, apparently $45 worth of shitty pot. So I just told him the story. It was 9-on-1. I wasn't about to let that happen. You wouldn't have let that happen. No one's gonna let that happen. That was fucked up. It's little Joe. He's a pussy. Everybody knows it. You don't fuck with pussies. You let them be pussies. There's no sport in fucking with a kid that you know you can beat up. Just intimidate him to get your point across. Because I didn't even really like Joe at that point. And I guess after that, it was just kind of over. We all kind of shook hands because we all kind of knew each other and shit. I mean, it was a semi-good fight, but of course I had to get back in my car with all my friends. And a couple of them were pretty disappointed because I put on a pitiful showing. This was a pitiful showing, and I was a good fighter. They knew me to be a good fighter. This was not the first fist fight I'd gotten into. Just every other fist fight I'd gotten into, I threw the first punch and usually won, or just was just a better fighter. Most of these suburban kids talk a whole lot of shit, get really mad, but they can't fight for shit. But no, this time, this little bastard could box. He was in some YMCA program. That's what he did. That was his thing. He was a little boxer. I knew him as this long-haired little artist, but nope, that kid was a boxer, and he fucking boxed the shit out of me. I mean, I did get a couple of blows in, but there was nothing on his face. Like, I hit him to the body a few times. He did try to go in for my stomach once, and I just kept on hitting him in the back because he tried to take me down, but he was like 110 pounds. He tried to fucking NFL my shit, and I just held on to him and started punching him in the back. That's as much as I can really remember. People tell me it was a longer fight, but if you've ever been in a fight, you know you can never remember. It usually goes by hella fast. The adrenaline makes it where you just live it so quickly that you can't instantly recall it right away. But yep, got my ass beat, and I got my ass beat in front of like 50 or 60 people, and I don't think I ever really lived that down. Everyone kind of remembered that for a while. But I had gotten into enough fights after that, so everyone knew that, you know, I wasn't a pussy and I wouldn't get my ass beat, and I could actually fight. But you know, there was this one time where this little tiny fucker fucked your shit up. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you tomorrow.